My name is Julia Martinez and I am 29 years old. There I stood in my ivory dress, watching Marcus slide the wedding ring onto my finger as tears of joy streamed down my face. The small chapel was filled with warm laughter and heartfelt applause, but an aching emptiness gnawed at my chest. Not one member of my immediate family sat among the guests. Only friends and Marcus's loving relatives witnessed this moment I had dreamed of since childhood. As the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, my phone buzzed insistently in my bouquet. A text from my mother flashed on the screen. Emergency. Call immediately. This changes everything. Below it, 42 missed calls from various family members. My heart sank as dread washed over me, threatening to overshadow what should have been the happiest moment of my life. Before I continue, tell us where you are watching from and please like and subscribe. Have you ever felt abandoned by family who choose someone else over you? If so, you'll understand my pain. To understand why my family wasn't at my wedding, I need to take you back to where it all began. I grew up in what appeared to be a picture-perfect family in suburban Denver, Colorado. My parents, Richard and Victoria Martinez, were successful professionals. Dad was a prominent attorney, Mom a respected pediatric surgeon. From the outside, we had everything: the grand house in the prestigious Highlands Ranch neighborhood, annual ski trips to Aspen, and expensive cars in the driveway. But behind the polished facade, our family harbored a toxic secret that would shape my entire childhood and beyond. The source of that toxicity had a name: Camila Martinez, my younger sister by 2 years. From the moment Camila entered this world, she became the sun around which our entire family orbited. With her platinum blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and an innate ability to charm anyone within a 5-foot radius, she was what my parents called their miracle child. This wasn't just typical parental pride, it was an obsession that would consume our household for decades. I wasn't an unattractive child, nor was I lacking in talents. I excelled academically, particularly in literature and history. I played piano competently, participated in debate club, and maintained a close circle of genuine friendships. But in the Martinez household, I might as well have been invisible. Every achievement I earned was immediately overshadowed by whatever Camila was doing that week. The pattern established itself early. When I was 8 and won the district spelling bee, earning a trophy and a small scholarship, my parents nodded approvingly and placed the award on a shelf. That same week, Camila sang a solo in her kindergarten Christmas program. Not only did my parents attend with a professional camera crew they hired, but they also threw a celebration dinner afterward, inviting extended family to commemorate Camila's incredible performance. I sat at that dinner table, my spelling bee trophy forgotten in another room, watching relatives fawn over my 5-year-old sister's rendition of Jingle Bells. This wasn't an isolated incident, it was the blueprint for our family dynamic. When I made honor roll throughout middle school, the achievement earned me a brief good job from Dad. When Camila learned to ride a bike without training wheels at age 6, Dad took the day off work to teach her, recorded the entire process, and sent the video to everyone in his contact list. When I was accepted into the advanced placement program in high school, Mom mentioned it in passing to her friends. When Camila won a local beauty pageant at age 12, Mom organized a professional photo shoot and had the images displayed prominently throughout our house. The disparity in treatment was so consistent, so pervasive, that I began to internalize the message my parents were sending. I was ordinary, forgettable, while Camila was extraordinary and deserving of endless attention and resources. By the time I reached my teenage years, I had stopped expecting equal treatment. I learned to celebrate my victories alone and comfort myself through disappointments without parental support. High school brought new challenges and deeper wounds. I had worked incredibly hard to become valedictorian of my class, maintaining a perfect GPA while juggling multiple extracurricular activities. The graduation ceremony was scheduled for a Tuesday evening in late May. I was to deliver the valedictory speech I had spent weeks perfecting. 2 weeks before graduation, I reminded my parents about the date and time, assuming they would want to be there for this significant milestone. "Of course we'll be there, sweetheart," Mom assured me. "We're so proud of you." Dad nodded in agreement. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, Jules." I felt a rare moment of warmth from their approval. Finally, I thought, here was an achievement significant enough to earn their full attention and support. I was wrong. The Thursday before my graduation, Camilla burst into the house with news that would once again derail my moment. She had been selected as a finalist for a teen modeling competition in Los Angeles. The final round of judging was scheduled for the exact same Tuesday evening as my graduation ceremony. "This is my big break," Camilla announced dramatically, throwing herself onto the living room sofa. "The winner gets a contract with a major modeling agency. This could change my entire life." I watched from the kitchen doorway as my parents immediately shifted into crisis management mode, discussing logistics for the unexpected trip to Los Angeles. No one seemed to remember that Tuesday was also my graduation day until I cleared my throat and spoke up. "That's the same day as my graduation," I said quietly. The room fell silent. My parents looked at each other, then at Camilla, then finally at me. The decision was made without words. "Honey," Mom began, her voice taking on that familiar tone of false sympathy, "this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Camilla. Graduation ceremonies happen every year, but this modeling competition could launch her entire career." "I'm the valedictorian," I said, hating how desperate I sounded. "I'm giving the speech. This isn't just any graduation, it's my graduation." Dad joined the conversation, employing his lawyer voice, measured, logical, and completely devoid of warmth. "Julia, you're clearly intelligent and capable. You don't need us there to validate your achievements. But Camilla needs our support right now. She's younger, and this industry is difficult to navigate alone." The words hit me like physical blows. I was 17 years old, and my parents were telling me that my academic achievement, the culmination of 4 years of hard work, was less important than Camilla's potential modeling career. They were telling me that I was strong enough to handle disappointment, while she was too fragile to face her opportunities alone. I graduated as valedictorian to a crowd that included my grandparents, my best friend Maya and her parents, and my English teacher Mrs. Rodriguez, who had become something of a mentor. The 4 seats I had reserved for my immediate family remained conspicuously empty. I delivered my speech about perseverance and the importance of staying true to yourself, all while fighting back tears and trying not to look at the vacant chairs in the 3rd row. Camilla won 2nd place in the modeling competition. The family celebrated with a weekend trip to Disneyland. College became my escape. I earned a full academic scholarship to Northwestern University, where I majored in journalism with a minor in psychology. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued intelligence, curiosity, and hard work. My professors recognized my potential. My classmates respected my opinions. I made genuine friendships based on mutual interests and shared values rather than family obligation. Maya, my best friend from high school, attended a different university but remained my closest confidant. She had witnessed my family dynamics firsthand and often served as my reality check when I began to doubt my own perceptions. "Your family is toxic, Julia," she told me during one of our late-night phone calls freshman year. "What they do to you isn't normal or okay. You deserve so much better." I knew she was right, but acknowledging the truth felt like betraying the only family I had. Despite their consistent favoritism toward Camilla, I still loved my parents and desperately wanted their approval. I called home regularly during my freshman year, hoping that distance might improve our relationship. Instead, I found that our conversations followed the same predictable pattern: brief inquiries about my well-being followed by lengthy updates about Camilla's latest adventures. During my sophomore year, I met someone who would change my perspective on family relationships entirely. Dr. Sarah Chen was my developmental psychology professor, and she had an uncanny ability to identify students who were struggling with personal issues. After I submitted a particularly insightful paper on family systems and emotional neglect, she asked me to stay after class. "Julia," she said gently, "your paper demonstrates a deep understanding of dysfunctional family patterns. I'm wondering if this is more than academic interest for you." That conversation opened floodgates I didn't even know existed. Dr. Chen recommended that I speak with a counselor at the university's mental health center. I resisted at first. Seeking therapy felt like admitting there was something wrong with me, rather than acknowledging that my family's treatment of me was problematic. Dr. Lisa Patel, the counselor I eventually began seeing, helped me understand concepts like emotional neglect, golden child syndrome, and scapegoating. For the first time, I had language to describe my experiences and validation that my pain was legitimate. Children need more than food and shelter, Dr. Patel explained during one of our sessions. They need emotional nourishment, validation, and consistent love that isn't conditional on performance or comparison to siblings. It sounds like you were expected to be self-sufficient emotionally while your sister received unlimited support and attention. Through therapy, I began to understand that my parents' treatment of me wasn't a reflection of my worth as a person. Their inability to see and celebrate my achievements said more about their limitations than mine. This realization was both liberating and painful. Liberating because it freed me from constantly trying to earn their approval, painful because it forced me to grieve the parent-child relationship I had always wanted but would never have. As I progressed through college, I began to set healthier boundaries with my family. I called home less frequently and for shorter durations. When conversations inevitably turned to Camilla's latest accomplishments, I politely changed the subject or ended the call. I stopped sharing my good news with them, having learned that my achievements would either be minimized or completely overshadowed by whatever Camilla was doing. This shift in my behavior didn't go unnoticed, but rather than examine their own actions, my parents characterized my newfound independence as selfish and ungrateful. "You've changed since you went away to college," Mom said during one particularly tense phone call. "You used to be such a sweet, easygoing daughter. Now you seem angry and distant." "I'm not angry," I replied, though that wasn't entirely true. "I'm just learning to focus on relationships that are mutually supportive." "What's that supposed to mean?" Dad interjected. He was on speakerphone, as had become their habit during family calls. "It means I'm tired of being taken for granted. When was the last time either of you asked about my studies, my friends, or my plans for the future without immediately shifting the conversation to Camilla?" A long silence followed. Then Mom's voice, colder than I'd ever heard it. "Your sister is going through a difficult time right now. She needs extra support. I would think you'd want to be understanding, being her older sister." This was another familiar pattern. Whenever I advocated for myself or pointed out the inequity in how they treated us, Camilla suddenly became fragile and in need of protection. I had been cast in the role of the strong one who didn't need emotional support, while Camilla was perpetually the victim of circumstances beyond her control. By my senior year of college, I had largely disengaged from my family emotionally. I still loved them, but I had accepted that they were incapable of providing the relationship I needed. I focused on my studies, my friendships, and my budding career in journalism. I graduated summa cum laude and was offered a position at a respected magazine in Chicago. My parents attended my graduation ceremony, but spent most of the event discussing Camilla's upcoming audition for a reality television show. Moving to Chicago marked the beginning of my adult life, and for the first time I felt truly free. I threw myself into my work as a junior journalist, covering human interest stories that often dealt with family dynamics, relationships, and social issues. My personal experiences gave me insight and empathy that enhanced my reporting. Colleagues and editors recognized my talent, and within 2 years I had been promoted twice. It was during this period of professional success and personal growth that I met Marcus Thompson. He was a photographer assigned to work with me on a feature story about urban community gardens. The moment I saw him setting up his equipment in the small garden in Lincoln Park, I was struck by his quiet confidence and the careful attention he paid to every detail of his craft. Marcus was tall and lean, with dark hair that was always slightly disheveled and warm brown eyes that seemed to notice everything. When he smiled, which he did frequently, his entire face transformed with genuine warmth. We spent the day interviewing community members and documenting their stories, and I found myself stealing glances at him as he worked. Our professional collaboration extended into dinner that evening, ostensibly to review our notes and plan the article. But as we sat in a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy, our conversation wandered far from work. Marcus told me about his childhood in Milwaukee, his close relationship with his parents and two siblings, and his passion for photography as a means of storytelling. "I think photographs have the power to make people feel less alone," he said, gesturing with his wine glass. "When someone sees an image that captures an emotion they've experienced but couldn't articulate, it creates this moment of connection and understanding." I found myself opening up to him in ways I rarely did with anyone, including Maya. There was something about Marcus that felt safe, accepting. When I mentioned my complicated relationship with my family, he listened without judgment or attempts to minimize my experience. "That sounds really painful," he said simply. "Families are supposed to be our safe harbor, the place where we're accepted unconditionally. When they fail to provide that, it leaves a wound that affects everything else." No one had ever articulated it so clearly or compassionately. Most people, when I mentioned family difficulties, either offered platitudes about blood being thicker than water or tried to find ways to excuse my parents' behavior. Marcus simply acknowledged my pain and validated my experience. Our working relationship quickly evolved into something deeper. Marcus had a way of making me feel seen and valued that was completely foreign to me. He celebrated my professional victories with genuine enthusiasm. He remembered details about my interests and goals. He introduced me to his friends and family with obvious pride. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone's first choice rather than their afterthought. 6 months into our relationship, I made the mistake of sharing some of my happiness with my family during a rare phone call home. I mentioned that I was dating someone wonderful and that things were going really well. "That's nice, dear," Mom responded with what sounded like genuine interest. "What does he do?" "He's a photographer. We actually work together sometimes on assignments. He's incredibly talented and kind." "Photography," Dad repeated, his tone shifting to what I recognized as his judgmental lawyer voice. "Is that financially viable? You've worked so hard to build your career. You want to make sure you're with someone who can match your ambition and earning potential." Before I could respond, Camilla's voice cut through the line. She had apparently been listening on another extension. "Julia has a boyfriend?" she said, her voice carrying that particular tone of surprise she used whenever attention focused on me for any reason. I didn't think Julia was really the relationship type. She's always been so focused on work and school. "I'm perfectly capable of balancing a relationship and career," I said, feeling defensive despite myself. "Of course you are," Mom interjected quickly. "Camilla didn't mean anything by that." But Camilla was just getting started. "I mean, it's great that Julia found someone. I just hope she doesn't get too serious too quickly. Remember how she used to get obsessed with things in high school? Like when she spent that entire summer reading about journalism and wouldn't talk about anything else." "Pursuing my interests isn't the same as being obsessed," I replied, recognizing the familiar pattern of Camilla reframing my positive qualities as character flaws. "I'm just looking out for you," she said with false sweetness. "I want you to be happy, but I also don't want you to scare this guy away by being too intense." The conversation continued downhill from there. By the time I hung up, my excitement about sharing my relationship had been thoroughly dampened. Maya, when I called her afterward, was characteristically direct in her assessment. "Why do you keep doing this to yourself, Julia? You know they're going to find a way to diminish anything good in your life. Stop giving them ammunition." She was right, of course. I resolved to share less about my personal life with my family, particularly as my relationship with Marcus grew more serious. Over the following year, Marcus and I moved in together, traveled throughout the Midwest on various assignments, and began talking about a future that included marriage and children. His family, who lived in Milwaukee, welcomed me warmly during our visits. His parents, Janet and Robert Thompson, treated me like a daughter from our first meeting. "We're so happy Marcus found you," Janet told me during my second visit to their home. "We can see how much joy you bring him. You're part of our family now." The simplicity and sincerity of her acceptance brought tears to my eyes. I excused myself to the bathroom and cried quietly, overwhelmed by the contrast between the unconditional acceptance I received from Marcus's family and the conditional, competitive love I had known growing up. Marcus found me there, sitting on the edge of the bathtub with mascara streaking down my cheeks. "What's wrong?" he asked, immediately kneeling in front of me. "Nothing's wrong," I said, laughing through my tears. "Everything is right. Your family is they're what I always imagined families could be like." He understood without further explanation, pulling me into his arms and holding me until the tears stopped. That night, as we lay in his childhood bedroom, he brought up something that had clearly been on his mind. "Julia," he said quietly, "I've been thinking about proposing for a while now. I know I want to spend my life with you. But I also know that your relationship with your family is complicated, and I want to make sure we handle this in a way that feels right for you." My heart started racing. "Are you proposing right now?" "No," he laughed. "When I propose, it'll be planned and romantic and memorable for all the right reasons. I just wanted to talk about it first. About what kind of engagement and wedding you want, considering everything." We talked until dawn about our dreams for the future, our concerns about involving my family, and our shared commitment to creating something beautiful together regardless of any obstacles. Marcus's thoughtfulness and consideration for my feelings only reinforced my certainty that he was the person I wanted to build a life with. 3 months later, on a crisp Saturday morning in October, Marcus proposed. He had arranged for us to return to the community garden where we had first met, but this time it was empty except for the two of us and a professional photographer hidden nearby to capture the moment. He had worked with the garden's organizers to create a small display of photographs he had taken throughout our relationship, mounted on easels among the autumn flowers. As I walked through the garden, seeing our story told through his eyes, images of me laughing at dinner, concentrating on my laptop while working on a story, playing with his family's dog during a visit to Milwaukee, I began to understand what was happening. At the center of the garden, Marcus waited beside a final photograph, an image of the two of us taken by Janet during our last visit, both of us looking completely happy and unguarded. Below it, written in elegant calligraphy, were the words, "Julia Martinez, will you marry me?" I turned to find Marcus on one knee, holding a simple but beautiful vintage ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "Julia," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, "you are the most compassionate, intelligent, talented woman I have ever known. You've taught me that love should be supportive, not competitive. That families can be chosen as well as born. I want to spend the rest of my life celebrating you, protecting you, and building something beautiful with you. Will you marry me?" Through tears of pure joy, I said yes. The hidden photographer captured the moment as Marcus slipped the ring onto my finger, and we held each other among the flowers, both of us crying and laughing simultaneously. That evening, as we celebrated our engagement over dinner at the restaurant where we'd had our first non-work meal together, the question of telling our families arose. Marcus was eager to share the news with his parents and siblings, who he knew would be thrilled. I felt the familiar anxiety that accompanied any thought of communication with my own family. "We could call them together," Marcus offered. "I could be there for moral support." I appreciated his willingness to shield me, but I knew this was something I needed to do alone. "No, but thank you. I need to tell them myself. I just need to prepare mentally first." The next morning, I called my parents' house, my stomach churning as the phone rang. Mom answered on the third ring. "Julia, what a surprise. We were just talking about you." "Hi, Mom. I have some news to share. Marcus proposed yesterday and I said yes. We're engaged." A pause that lasted a beat too long before she responded. Oh my. Well, congratulations, dear." Her tone was polite but flat, lacking any of the enthusiasm I had secretly hoped for despite years of disappointment. I pressed forward, determined to share this moment regardless of her reaction. "It was beautiful, Mom. He proposed at the place where we first met, and he had created this whole display of photographs from our relationship. It was so thoughtful and romantic." "That's nice," she said. Photography again. Well, I suppose that's his area of expertise. The subtle dismissal stung, but I continued. We're thinking about having the wedding next fall. Something small and intimate, probably in Chicago since that's where we both work and live. Next fall. Her tone sharpened with what sounded like concern. That's quite soon, isn't it? Are you sure you're not rushing into this? Before I could respond, I heard Camilla's voice in the background, saying something I couldn't quite make out. Then Mom was back on the line, her attention clearly divided. Sorry, dear. Camilla just walked in with some exciting news of her own. Did I tell you she's been cast in a new web series? It's going to be streaming on a major platform. This could really be her big break. And just like that, my engagement announcement was overshadowed. I listened as Mom enthusiastically relayed details about Camilla's latest opportunity while my own news faded into the background. Mom, I interrupted gently. Can we talk more about the wedding plans? I'd really like your input on some decisions. Of course, honey. But you know how busy things are right now with Camilla's career taking off. Why don't you call back next week when things settle down? I ended the call feeling hollow and unsurprised. Marcus, who had been waiting anxiously in our kitchen, took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms without asking for details. I'm sorry, he said simply. It's okay, I replied, though we both knew it wasn't. I expected it to go exactly like that. Despite my family's lukewarm response, Marcus and I began planning our wedding with excitement and care. We wanted something intimate and meaningful, reflecting our values and the life we were building together. We chose a beautiful historic venue in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood, decided on a guest list of about 70 people, and began working with vendors who understood our vision for a celebration focused on genuine connection rather than elaborate display. Marcus's family threw themselves into wedding planning with enthusiasm that highlighted the stark contrast with my own family's disengagement. Janet insisted on hosting an engagement party for us in Milwaukee, inviting their extended family and close friends to celebrate. Robert offered to contribute financially to the wedding costs, despite our protests that we could handle the expenses ourselves. Marcus's sister Emma took on the unofficial role of wedding planning coordinator, helping me research vendors and manage logistics. The engagement party in Milwaukee was everything I had ever imagined a family celebration could be. The house was filled with warmth, laughter, and genuine joy. People wanted to hear our story, see my ring, and share in our happiness. Janet made a toast that brought tears to my eyes. Marcus has always been our gentle, thoughtful son, she said, raising her glass to the gathered crowd. But since he met Julia, he's been more than happy, he's been complete. Julia, you've brought out the best in him, and we couldn't be more grateful to welcome you into our family. Here's to Marcus and Julia and to the beautiful life they're building together. The room erupted in cheers and applause. I felt Marcus squeeze my hand as he leaned over to kiss my cheek, and for a moment, I allowed myself to imagine what it would feel like if my own family celebrated me with such genuine enthusiasm. 3 months before our wedding, we sent out invitations. I included ones for my parents, Camilla, and a few extended family members, though I kept my expectations low. Weeks passed without any RSVPs from my immediate family. Finally, I called to follow up. Did you receive the wedding invitation? I asked when Mom answered. Yes, we got it. Beautiful design. You always did have good taste in things like that. The venue needs a final head count soon. Will you be able to attend? Another pause. Well, your father and I have been discussing it. September is such a busy time for us. Dad has that big case going to trial, and I'm covering extra shifts at the hospital because Dr. Stevens is going on sabbatical. Mom, this is my wedding day. I really need to know if you're coming. Of course we want to be there, Julia. It's just that the timing is difficult. We'll do our best to make it work. The non-committal response was familiar and frustrating, but I decided to take her at face value. Over the following weeks, I tried to involve my family in wedding preparations, hoping their participation might increase their investment in actually attending. Would you like to come dress shopping with me? I asked during one phone call. Oh, that sounds lovely, but I'm so busy with work right now. You have such good taste, though. I'm sure you'll find something perfect. What about helping with the menu selection? The caterer has a few different options. You and Marcus should choose what you like. You're the ones getting married. Each polite deflection felt like another small rejection. Meanwhile, Marcus's family remained actively involved in every aspect of our planning. Janet drove to Chicago twice to help with various wedding tasks. Emma created a detailed timeline for the wedding day. Robert researched photographers until he found someone whose work perfectly matched our vision. 2 weeks before the wedding, I was working late at the office when my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. Camilla had posted a photo that made my blood run cold. She was standing in what appeared to be a bridal boutique, wearing a white dress and beaming at the camera. The caption read, "Surprise. Jeremy proposed. We're getting married next month. Jinghao engaged Jinghao, bride-to-be Jinghao, so happy." I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. Camilla was engaged to Jeremy Walsh, a guy she had been casually dating for about 3 months. And according to her post, they were planning to get married in October, just 1 month after my wedding. My hands shaking, I called my mother immediately. "Julia, honey, what's wrong? You sound upset." "Camilla is engaged? And getting married next month? When were you planning to tell me?" A sigh. "Oh, you saw her post." "Yes, Jeremy proposed over the weekend. It was very romantic. He took her to Napa Valley and proposed at sunset in a vineyard. Very dreamy. But why didn't anyone tell me directly? And why are they getting married so soon?" "Well, dear, you've been so busy with your own wedding preparations. We didn't want to distract you with other news." The explanation felt false, but I couldn't pinpoint why. "Mom, October is only a month after my wedding. Don't you think that's kind of close timing?" "Time passes quickly. Besides, when you know, right? That's what you said about Marcus." Something in her tone set off alarm bells, but the conversation was interrupted by call waiting. "Julia, I need to take this other call. It's the caterer for Camilla's wedding. We'll talk soon, okay?" I hung up feeling unsettled but unable to articulate exactly why. Maya, when I called her, was more direct in her assessment. "That's suspicious as hell, Julia. Your sister decides to get married 1 month after you? That's not coincidence, that's competition." "Maybe I'm being paranoid," I said, though her words echoed my own instincts. "Trust your gut," Maya advised. "Your family has a history of making everything about Camilla. This feels like more of the same." The week before my wedding, I called my parents one final time to confirm their attendance. Dad answered this time, sounding distracted. "Hi, Dad. I just wanted to double-check that you'll be there on Saturday. The ceremony starts at 4. "Saturday, yes, of course. We'll be there, Julia. Wouldn't miss it." His response sounded automatic, like he hadn't really been listening to my question. I pressed further. "You remember you're walking me down the aisle, right? We talked about this months ago." "Walking you down the aisle?" "Yes, absolutely. I've got it in my calendar." But something in his tone made me doubt whether he actually remembered or was just agreeing to end the conversation quickly. "Is everything okay, Dad? You sound distracted." "Just busy with work, honey. You know how it is. Big case prep." We hung up, and I tried to push down the growing anxiety about my family's level of commitment to actually showing up. Marcus, sensing my stress, suggested we do a final confirmation with the venue coordinator about seating arrangements. "How many people do we have in your immediate family section?" the coordinator asked, reviewing her notes. 4, I said, though the word felt uncertain on my tongue. "My parents, my sister, and her fiancé." "Perfect. And they're all confirmed to attend?" I hesitated. "Yes," I said finally, hoping it was true. The day before our wedding, Marcus and I met with our officiant for a final rehearsal at the venue. The space looked magical. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting golden light on the carefully arranged flowers and elegant table settings. Everything was perfect except for the knot of anxiety in my stomach about my family's attendance. As we walked through the ceremony one final time, I found myself staring at the empty chairs in the front row reserved for my parents and sister. Would they actually be filled tomorrow, or would I walk down the aisle to another row of vacant seats, just like at my high school graduation? "You okay?" Marcus asked quietly as we finished the rehearsal. "Just nervous," I said, which was true but incomplete. That evening, we held our rehearsal dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant near the venue. Marcus's family and our closest friends filled a private dining room with laughter and stories. The atmosphere was warm and celebratory, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, or rather, someone was missing. Several people. During the toasts, Robert stood up with his wine glass raised. "Tomorrow, we're not just witnessing a wedding," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "We're celebrating the union of two people who have found in each other what every marriage should be: partnership, respect, and unconditional love. Julia, you've made our son happier than we've ever seen him, and we couldn't be more thrilled to officially welcome you into our family." The toast was met with applause and cheers. As I looked around the room at the faces of people who genuinely cared about Marcus and me, I felt a moment of peace. These were the people who mattered. These were the people who showed up. Later that evening, alone in my hotel room per tradition, I decided to make one final attempt to reach out to my family. I called my parents' house, but the call went straight to voicemail. I tried Camilla's cell phone with the same result. Finally, I sent a group text, "Looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow at 4 p.m. The venue is downtown Chicago, address attached. Love you." No responses came. I went to bed that night with a mixture of excitement about marrying Marcus and dread about potentially being abandoned by my family once again on one of the most important days of my life. My wedding day dawned crisp and clear, with the kind of golden autumn light that makes Chicago look magical. Maya arrived at my hotel room at 9 in the morning with coffee, pastries, and the kind of moral support only a best friend can provide. "Today is going to be perfect," she announced, setting up a small breakfast spread on the hotel room table. "You're going to marry the love of your life, surrounded by people who adore you both. Everything else is just noise." The hair and makeup artists arrived on schedule, transforming me into a bride. As I looked at myself in the mirror, hair swept into an elegant updo, makeup highlighting my features, wearing the beautiful dress Marcus had never seen, I felt a surge of excitement that momentarily pushed aside my family anxieties. At 2 o'clock, Maya helped me into my wedding dress, a flowing A-line gown with delicate lace detailing and a train that felt both elegant and comfortable. As she fastened the dozens of tiny buttons up the back, I caught sight of myself in the full-length mirror. "You look absolutely stunning," Maya said, her voice emotional. "Marcus is going to cry when he sees you." A knock at the door interrupted us. Maya opened it to reveal a hotel staff member holding an enormous bouquet of flowers. "Delivery for Julia Martinez," she said. I assumed they were from Marcus, but when Maya read the card aloud, we discovered they were from Janet and Robert. The note read, "Julia, we're so happy to welcome you into our family today. You are a daughter to us now. Love, Mom and Dad Thompson." I burst into tears, careful not to disturb my makeup. The kindness and acceptance from Marcus's parents highlighted the absence of any communication from my own family. "Have you heard from them at all?" Maya asked gently. I shook my head. "Nothing since yesterday." She squeezed my hand. "Their loss. You have a whole room of people who can't wait to celebrate you and Marcus today." At 3:30, it was time to head to the venue. Marcus's father, Robert, was waiting in the hotel lobby, looking distinguished in his navy suit. When he saw me, his face broke into a warm smile. "Julia, you look absolutely radiant," he said, offering his arm. "Are you ready to marry my son?" "More than ready," I replied, meaning every word. As we arrived at the venue, I could see guests beginning to take their seats through the windows. The ceremony space looked even more beautiful than it had the day before, with late afternoon sunlight creating a warm, golden atmosphere. Maya squeezed my hand one final time before taking her place as my maid of honor. "This is it," she whispered. "Your moment." I took a deep breath and nodded to Robert. The music began and we started our walk down the aisle. As the doors opened and I saw the assembled guests turning to watch me, my eyes automatically went to the front row on the left side, the seats reserved for my family. They were empty. All 4 seats sat vacant, a glaring reminder of my family's absence on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. But as I continued walking, my gaze found Marcus waiting at the altar, and everything else faded into the background. His face when he saw me was everything I could have hoped for, pure love, awe, and joy. The ceremony itself was beautiful and intimate. We had written our own vows, and when Marcus spoke, his words brought tears to my eyes and murmurs of appreciation from our guests. "Julia," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion I could see in his eyes, "you are the strongest, most compassionate person I know. You've taught me that love should lift you up, not tear you down. That families can be chosen as well as born. Today, I promise to be your safe harbor, your biggest champion, and your equal partner in all things. I promise to celebrate your victories and support you through challenges. Most importantly, I promise to love you exactly as you are, for exactly who you are, every single day for the rest of our lives." When it was my turn, I looked into Marcus's eyes and felt a peace I had never experienced before. "Marcus, you showed me what unconditional love looks like. You taught me that I deserve to be someone's first choice, not their afterthought. Today, I promise to be your partner and your best friend. I promise to build a life with you based on mutual respect, genuine support, and the kind of love that makes both of us better people. You are my chosen family, and I choose you every day." When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the kiss we shared felt like a promise fulfilled. The applause from our guests was warm and genuine, filled with people who truly wanted to be there to celebrate with us. The reception was held in the same venue, in a beautifully decorated hall adjacent to the ceremony space. Despite the notable absence of my immediate family, the room felt full of love and joy. Marcus and I had our first dance to At Last by Etta James, and as we swayed together in the center of the dance floor, I felt truly complete for the first time in my life. During the parent dances, Robert stepped in to dance with me, a gesture that brought fresh tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered as we moved across the floor. "For everything. For welcoming me, for being here, for stepping in when." "Your family now," he interrupted gently. "This is what family does." The evening continued with toasts, dinner, and more dancing. Marcus's extended family and our friends filled the space with laughter and genuine celebration. If anyone noticed the empty table that had been reserved for my family, they were kind enough not to mention it. As we were cutting the cake, a simple but elegant 3-tier creation decorated with fresh flowers, my phone buzzed insistently in the small purse Maya was holding for me. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the moment, but the buzzing continued. "Do you want me to check that?" Maya asked quietly. I nodded and she discreetly pulled out my phone. Her expression immediately changed when she saw the screen. "Julia," she said, her voice tight with concern, "you have 42 missed calls from your family. And a text from your mom that says emergency. Call immediately. This changes everything." My stomach dropped. What could possibly be so urgent that they would bombard me with calls during my wedding reception? Marcus noticed my expression immediately. "What's wrong?" Maya showed him the phone screen. He frowned, then looked at me with concern. "Whatever it is can wait," he said firmly. "This is our wedding day. They made their choice to not be here." Part of me agreed with him completely. My family had chosen to miss my wedding, and now they wanted to interrupt my reception with some crisis that was probably related to Camilla. But another part of me, the part that had been trained since childhood to respond to my family's needs, felt anxious about ignoring so many urgent calls. "What if something is really wrong?" I asked. Marcus studied my face, then sighed. "If you need to call them back, I understand. But remember, you don't owe them your time today. This day belongs to us." I squeezed his hand gratefully, then stepped out to a quiet area of the venue to return the call. My mother answered on the first ring, her voice frantic and tearful. "Julia, oh thank God. We've been trying to reach you for hours." Mom, I was getting married. What's so urgent that it couldn't wait? It's about Camilla, she said, her voice breaking. About why we didn't come to your wedding. Julia, we've made a terrible mistake. I felt the world tilt beneath me. What do you mean? Camilla lied to us about everything. She told us you didn't want us at your wedding. She showed us fake text messages from you saying you were having a private ceremony with just Marcus's family because they were your real family now. She said you specifically asked us not to come because you were embarrassed by us. My hand trembled as I gripped the phone tighter. What are you talking about? I never sent any messages like that. I've been calling and asking you to come for months. I know that now, my mother admitted, her voice small and ashamed. Jeremy broke up with Camilla today, right before their wedding ceremony. He said he couldn't marry someone so manipulative and cruel. When we asked him what he meant, he told us what Camilla had confessed to him, that she had deliberately sabotaged your relationship with us because she couldn't stand not being the center of attention. The magnitude of Camilla's betrayal began to sink in. She made you believe I didn't want you at my wedding? She deleted your real messages from our phones when we weren't looking. She intercepted calls and told us you were too busy to talk when you had actually called. She even created fake screenshots of text conversations to show us how much you supposedly resented us. I sank onto a nearby bench, trying to process this information. But why would you believe that I would exclude my own family without talking to you directly? My father's voice cut in. I was apparently on speakerphone again. Because we knew we hadn't been good parents to you, Julia. We knew we had failed you in favor of Camilla for years. When she told us you didn't want us there, part of us believed we deserved that rejection. So you just accepted it? You didn't even try to call me directly to ask if it was true. We were cowards, my mother whispered. It was easier to believe Camilla's lies than to face the truth about how we had treated you. And because she was our daughter too, we never imagined she would lie about something so important. Where is Camilla now? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. We don't know. She left after Jeremy confronted her at the altar. She's not answering our calls. Julia, we are so sorry. We failed you completely. We don't expect forgiveness, but we needed you to know the truth. I closed my eyes, trying to absorb the full scope of what had happened. My sister had orchestrated an elaborate deception to ensure my parents would miss my wedding. She had manipulated them into believing I didn't want them there, knowing how much their absence would hurt me. I need to process this, I said finally. I'm in the middle of my wedding reception right now. Of course, my father said quickly. We couldn't wait another moment to tell you the truth. Is there any chance we could see you soon? To apologize properly and try to begin making amends. The request felt surreal. My wedding day, which I had always imagined would include my family, was almost over. They had missed everything that couldn't be recreated or repeated. I'll call you tomorrow, I said, after I've had time to think. When I returned to the reception, Marcus took one look at my face and immediately guided me to a private corner. What happened? He asked gently. I told him everything, watching his expression shift from confusion to anger to disbelief as the full story unfolded. She deliberately sabotaged our wedding day, he said, his voice tight with controlled fury. She manipulated your parents into believing lies about you. Julia, this goes way beyond normal sibling rivalry. This is calculated psychological manipulation. I know, I said, feeling oddly numb. I can't believe she would go this far. Marcus pulled me into his arms. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry your family missed our wedding because of her lies, and I'm sorry you had to find this out today of all days. What do we do now? I asked. Now? Now we finish celebrating our wedding with the people who chose to be here. Tomorrow we can figure out how to handle your family. Tonight is still ours. We returned to the reception where Maya immediately pulled me aside, having sensed something significant had happened. What did they say? She asked. I filled her in on the revelation about Camilla's deception. Maya's reaction was swift and fierce. That manipulative little psychopath, she said, her voice seething. Julia, what she did is unforgivable. This isn't just lying, this is elaborate psychological warfare. I know. I just don't understand how she could be so cruel. Because she's always gotten away with it, Maya said bluntly. Your parents enabled her behavior for years and now it's escalated to this level. For the remainder of the evening, I tried to focus on the celebration and the people who had chosen to be there with Marcus and me. Our friends and his family filled the room with genuine joy and love, but I couldn't shake the hollow feeling left by my family's absence and the revelation of why they weren't there. When the reception ended around midnight, Marcus and I returned to our hotel suite, emotionally exhausted but still processing the events of the day. As I changed out of my wedding dress, Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, watching me with concern. "How are you feeling about everything?" he asked. I considered his question carefully. Hurt, angry, confused, but also relieved in a strange way. For the first time, I have a clear explanation for why my family has always seemed to choose Camilla over me. It wasn't because I wasn't worthy of their love, it was because she was actively sabotaging our relationship. "What do you want to do about your parents?" Marcus asked. "They want to apologize and make amends." I don't know yet. Part of me wants to hear what they have to say. But another part of me wonders if it's too little, too late. They still chose to believe the worst about me without even asking for my side of the story. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you completely. But remember, you don't owe them forgiveness just because they're family. You get to decide what kind of relationship, if any, you want to have with them going forward." The next morning, after a room service breakfast and long conversation about our future, I called my parents. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop downtown, that afternoon. When I walked into the cafe, I barely recognized the people sitting at a corner table waiting for me. My parents looked haggard, aged by guilt and shame. My mother's eyes were red and swollen from crying. My father's usually confident posture was hunched with defeat. "Julia," my mother said, standing as I approached. "Thank you for agreeing to see us." I sat across from them, Marcus beside me for moral support, and waited for them to speak. "We don't expect forgiveness," my father began. "What we did, believing Camilla over you, missing your wedding, it's unforgivable. But we need you to understand how sorry we are and how much we want to try to make this right. How could you believe I would exclude my own family from my wedding?" I asked. The question had been burning in me since the revelation. What kind of relationship did you think we had that would make that believable? My parents looked at each other with obvious shame before my mother answered. "The truth is, we knew we had been terrible parents to you. We knew we had favored Camilla, missed your important moments, failed to celebrate your achievements the way we should have. When Camilla told us you didn't want us at your wedding, part of us believed it because we felt like we deserved that rejection. So instead of fighting for a relationship with me, instead of trying to make amends, you just accepted it?" "We were cowards," my father admitted. "It was easier to believe we had been cut out than to face the work of repairing the damage we had done." "And you never once thought to call me directly to ask if it was true?" "Camilla had an answer for everything," my mother said. "When we suggested calling you, she said you had specifically asked her to handle all communication because talking to us was too painful for you. She showed us screenshots of conversations where you supposedly said terrible things about us." "Screenshots that were fake," I pointed out. "Yes. But we didn't know that at the time. And honestly," my mother's voice broke, "some of the things she claimed you said weren't far from what we feared you might actually think of us." I sat in silence for a moment, processing their explanation. Their actions were inexcusable, but I was beginning to understand the psychology behind them. "Where is Camilla now?" I asked. "We don't know. She disappeared after Jeremy confronted her. She's not answering calls or texts. We've been trying to find her since yesterday." "Why did Jeremy confront her? How did he find out about the lies?" My father shifted uncomfortably. "Apparently, Camilla made a comment at their wedding about how she was finally going to be the center of attention without you stealing her spotlight. When Jeremy asked what she meant, she broke down and confessed everything. The casual cruelty of Camilla's comment, that I had somehow been stealing her spotlight simply by existing and achieving things, revealed the depth of her resentment toward me. What she did goes beyond normal sibling rivalry, Marcus said, speaking for the first time since we'd sat down. This was calculated psychological manipulation designed to isolate Julia from her family on one of the most important days of her life. My parents nodded miserably. We know, my mother said. We enabled her behavior for years, always making excuses for her, always putting her needs first. We created a monster. I need time to process all of this, I said finally. I can't just forgive and forget because you're sorry. You missed my wedding. You chose to believe the worst about me without even asking for my side of the story. Those actions have consequences. We understand, my father said quickly. We just hope that someday you might give us a chance to prove we can do better. Marcus and I left the coffee shop with no clear resolution, but with the first honest conversation I had ever had with my parents about our family dynamics. Over the following weeks, as Marcus and I settled into married life and returned from our delayed honeymoon in Italy, I found myself thinking constantly about my relationship with my family and what, if anything, I wanted to rebuild. My parents began sending regular emails, not asking for responses, just sharing updates about their lives and expressing continued regret about missing the wedding. They also started individual therapy, as well as family therapy sessions with a counselor who specialized in repairing damaged family relationships. Camilla remained missing for nearly a month before finally surfacing at a friend's apartment in Los Angeles. When my parents located her, she initially refused to speak with them, claiming she was the victim of everyone's overreaction. It took several more weeks before she agreed to return home and begin her own therapy. When she finally called me 6 weeks after my wedding, her voice was small and ashamed. Julia, I know there's nothing I can say that will make what I did okay. I destroyed your wedding day and I destroyed our family. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to tell you how sorry I am. Why? I asked simply. Why would you go to such elaborate lengths to hurt me? She was quiet for a long moment before answering. Because I was jealous. Because you had everything I wanted: genuine friends, real accomplishments, a man who loved you for who you actually are instead of what you could do for him. I got attention from Mom and Dad, but it always felt conditional on being perfect. You got to be authentic. So you decided to sabotage my wedding day? I wanted what you had, and when I couldn't have it, I wanted to destroy it. It was petty and cruel and unforgivable. Her honesty was startling, but it didn't erase the damage she had caused. I'm not ready to have a relationship with you, I said. What you did wasn't just lying, it was psychological manipulation designed to isolate me from our parents on one of the most important days of my life. I know. I'm getting help, Julia. Real help. Not because Mom and Dad are making me, but because I want to understand why I'm capable of such cruelty. It would be many months before Camilla and I spoke again, and even longer before we began the slow, difficult process of building something resembling a relationship. The work was painful and often felt impossible, but her commitment to therapy and genuine accountability gradually convinced me that she was serious about changing. My relationship with my parents evolved more quickly, though it required constant communication and boundary setting. They attended family therapy sessions, worked to understand the patterns that had led to such dysfunction, and made genuine efforts to know me as I am now rather than the child they had neglected. A year after my wedding, Marcus and I decided to have a small anniversary celebration at the same venue where we had gotten married. This time, my parents were there, having earned their way back into my life through consistent effort and genuine change. Camilla was not yet ready to face the sight of her greatest betrayal, but she sent a heartfelt letter acknowledging the anniversary and her hope for continued healing. As Marcus and I danced to our wedding song surrounded by friends and the family members who had either been there from the beginning or worked hard to repair the damage they had caused, I felt a deep sense of peace. The journey from that devastating wedding day to this moment of celebration had been painful and difficult, but it had also been transformative. I learned that families are not fixed entities but dynamic relationships that can evolve with genuine effort and accountability. I learned that forgiveness is not a single act but an ongoing process that happens on my timeline, not anyone else's. Most importantly, I learned that I have the power to choose which relationships deserve my energy and investment. 2 years after our wedding, Marcus and I welcomed our daughter Emma into the world. As I held her in the hospital, surrounded by my husband and the family members who had earned the right to be there, I made a promise to her and to myself. Our daughter would never wonder if she was loved, never question her worth, and never have to compete for attention and acceptance. Sometimes the most painful experiences teach us the most valuable lessons. My family's absence from my wedding day broke my heart, but it also broke the cycle of dysfunction that had defined our relationships for decades. In rebuilding from that breaking point, we created something stronger and healthier than what had existed before. The scars remain, but they serve as reminders of what I survived and what I chose to build in its place. My daughter will grow up knowing that love should be unconditional, that families should celebrate each member's victories, and that she never has to earn her place at the table. That knowledge makes all the pain worthwhile.